Sometimes art has more to it than first meets the eye. A simple piece of work may have deep meanings or hidden pieces that reveal themselves to those who know what to look for. And that's true of the famous piece, The Great Wave off Kanagawa, by Hokusai. At first sight, the Great Wave is simply an image of a serene and timeless Japan. But take a closer look, and you see that this beautiful wave is about to engulf 3 boats of terrified fishermen as Mount Fuji and the shores of Japan recede into the distance. This is an image of Japan, fearful that the sea which has protected its peaceful isolation for so long would become its downfall. Isolation? Oh yes. In 1639, Japan closed its borders and cut itself off from the outside world. Foreigners were expelled. Western culture was forbidden, and entering or leaving Japan was punishable by death. It would remain that way for over 200 years, with the exception of the Dutch, who were allowed to send 2 trading ships per year. The Dutch had never attempted to push Christianity in Japan, which is why they were given this special privilege. This trade agreement was one of the only direct connections between Japan and Europe at the time. The Great Wave stands as one of the most famous and widely reproduced images in the world. The famed composition crops up on everything from mugs and notebooks to scarves and umbrellas, and even appears on the emoji keyboard. Various editions of the print exist worldwide in public and private collections. One iteration is currently on view at the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts, which prompted some visitors seeing it for the first time to express surprise at its diminutive size. With the image measuring just under 15 inches wide and 10 inches high, the print with a massive reputation is itself actually quite small. Created roughly between 1830 and 1832 during the Japanese Edo period, this print depicts 3 boats encountering a rogue wave of gigantic proportions with Mount Fuji in the distant background. The work's official title is Kanagawa Oki Nami Ura, or Under the Wave off Kanagawa, and it is the first print of the series 36 Views of Mount Fuji. It falls within the style and tradition of ukiyo-e, a genre of Japanese decorative art comprised of woodblock prints and paintings that frequently depict everyday people, often of lower social strata, like actors and courtesans, as well as landscapes, flora, and fauna. The Edo period in Japan was characterized by the isolationist policy adopted by the country. During the Edo period, Japan was under the rule of the Tokugawa shogun, who believed that foreign influences posed a threat to the newfound stability of the country. To maintain this stability, strict social orders were imposed, with the population being split into classes ranging from the emperor and court nobles at the top, followed by the samurai, farming peasants, artisans, and finally merchants. Interaction between the classes was forbidden, and there were strict codes of public behavior for all. Despite the highly controlled atmosphere, the arts flourished during the Edo period, and the production of ukiyo-e, or pictures of the floating world, ensured that art was no longer restricted only to those of high status. Ukiyo-e, which referred to woodblock prints, was a craze similar to modern-day trading cards, and there was a constant demand for new images, new celebrities, and new prints to collect. The prints were mostly of famous courtesans and kabuki actors, with sex and celebrity selling the most. Woodblock prints have a rich history that dates back centuries, and the process of creating them require a team of skilled craftsmen. The team that creates a woodblock print typically consists of a publisher, an artist, a block cutter, and a printer. Each member of the team has a specific role to play, and their contributions are essential to the final product. The creation of a woodblock print was a complex process that demanded significant skill and attention to detail. It began with the artist designing on thin paper, which served as a guide for the block cutter. The artist had to be proficient with brush and ink to ensure the design could be precisely transferred. Once complete, the design was glued in reverse onto the woodblock. The block was then rubbed with a tool called a baron to transfer the design to the wood. The carver rubbed the block with his fingers, peeling off most of the paper and leaving only the image lines behind. Though the original design was destroyed in this step, it enabled the carver to replicate the artist's brushwork in wood. Highly skilled carvers, especially for artists like Hokusai, were chosen due to the intricate detail required. Hard wood, such as cherry, was used to withstand thousands of hand printings. Over time, the block would wear, causing early prints to differ from later ones due to loss of detail and color changes. After carving, the printer inked the block, placed a sheet of paper on it, and used the baron to transfer the ink. The artist would mark a proof indicating color placement, and the carver created a separate block for each color. This ensured every print was unique. The manual printing process left subtle indentations on the handmade paper, enhancing the print's charm. This intricate and delicate process was made possible by a dedicated team of skilled craftsmen, each playing a crucial role in producing a unique and beautiful piece of art. One of the most famous ukiyo-e prints is A Great Wave Off Kanagawa by Katsushika Hokusai, born in 1760. Made his reputation as a teenager painting portraits of kabuki actors for woodblock prints. Later, he moved away from images of celebrities and focused on landscapes and images of the daily life of Japanese people. This change of subject was a breakthrough in both ukiyo-e and Hokusai's career, and his work became the most sought after in Japan. Despite a successful professional life, Hokusai faced many personal challenges with both his wives and 2 children, predeceasing him, and he was struck by lightning at the age of 50. He also suffered a stroke that forced him to relearn how to draw. However, reaching the age of 60 in Japan is viewed as a time for rebirth, and Hokusai's last decades were when he produced his best and most loved works. At the age of 70, he embarked on his most ambitious project yet, 36 views of Mount Fuji, which included the Great Wave Dot. As he himself said, "All I have done before the age of 70 is not worth bothering with." Why Mount Fuji in the distant background, you may ask? For Hokusai, Mount Fuji was more than just a subject for his art. It was a symbol of his own longevity. He believed that the mountain held magical powers that could grant him a long life. In fact, he was convinced that he would live to the age of 110, and that the older he got, the better he became. Mount Fuji, located on the main island of Honshu, is the highest peak in Japan and has long been regarded as a sacred symbol of strength and stability in Japanese culture. With over 800 shrines dedicated to the mountain, it is no surprise that religious confraternities, known as Fuji Kai or Fuji cults, emerged around the worship of the mountain. For the famous Japanese artist Katsushika Hokusai, Mount Fuji held a deep personal and spiritual significance. In his series of prints known as 36 Views of Mount Fuji, Hokusai portrays the mountain from various perspectives, including the forest, the village, the lake, the river, and the beach. But it was the print known as the Great Wave off Kanagawa that would bring international attention to Japanese art. Hokusai was the first ukiyo-e artist to use landscape as the main focus of his mass-produced images. Despite the fact that landscape prints were not as popular as celebrity prints at the time, Hokusai's 36 Views were a classic example of his artistic style, which emphasized condensed images in their purest form and placed great importance on line and color dot in these prints. Hokusai also featured ordinary working-class individuals within the sacred landscape, blending the physical and the metaphysical seamlessly. As travel within Japan increased, sales of the landscape prints increased as well, although they were never as popular as the celebrity prints. Today, Mount Fuji and Hokusai's 36 views remain a significant aspect of Japanese culture and art history. The enduring popularity of these works is a testament to their ability to capture the beauty and significance of the mountain and its surrounding landscapes, while also capturing the essence of Japanese culture and spirituality. Here are 3 lesser-known facts about the iconic print. 1. Innovation in blue. One of the most captivating elements of Hokusai's Under the Wave off Kanagawa is the vivid and varied use of the color blue. Though today we might not think of these hues as exotic or remarkable in and of themselves, at the time the development of a stable blue was at the forefront of scientific discovery. Around 1705, Swiss pigment maker Johann Jacob Diesbach set about making a red pigment and accidentally used a compound containing a toxic oil created by failed German alchemist Johann Conrad Dippel, with whom he shared a lab to save money. The unintended result was a vibrant and stable, meaning not prone to fading or other deterioration, blue, later dubbed Prussian blue. Previously, similar shades were only achievable through crushing up the very expensive gemstone lapis lazuli, which was extracted from the mountains of Afghanistan. The new pigment led to a blue fever that swept Europe, with the color appearing in everything from clothes to paintings to wallpaper. Even tea leaves were dyed to follow the fashion, an act that was, as one might imagine, extremely toxic. It wasn't until the early 1800s, when a Chinese entrepreneur developed a new version of the recipe, that the hue arrived in Asian markets. Although at that point, Japan maintained harsh import regulations, the blue pigment soon appeared in the printmaking scene of Osaka. The introduction of the blue had similar seismic repercussions as those seen in Europe, with artists adopting the color widely including Hokusai. The Japanese referred to it as baro, a derivation of Berlin's blauw, Dutch for Berlin blue. The Netherlands had special dispensation to trade via port in Nagasaki. The Metropolitan Museum of Art's scientific research team conducted a spectroscopic analysis of the museum's edition of Under the Wave off Kanagawa and found that rather than wholly adopting the then new blue hue, printers meticulously layered it with a more traditional pigment made from the indigo plant, which was steelier in shade. The conclusion was that the first pass of the print included a mixture of Prussian blue and indigo, with the second laying down pure Prussian blue to produce a more nuanced effect. The result is what we see today, a dynamic undulation of blue hues within the water surface, conveying a powerful sense of movement. 2. It wasn't originally considered art. It is thought that 1,000 editions of Under the Wave off Kanagawa were originally printed, and upwards of 8,000 were eventually made in total. However, these prints and ukiyo-e overall were not considered fine art in Japan. They were cheaply made and sold, and thought of more as commercial design. Because of this, many of the prints were initially not very well cared for, with most becoming damaged or simply thrown away. Of the thousands originally produced, it is estimated that the number still extant is only in the hundreds. Rarefying the prints even more is the fact that in the woodblocks were customarily used until failure, meaning that later editions of the print show signs of wear and damage. The non-art sentiment ultimately didn't change until Japan opened several of its ports to other countries in 1859, after which a wave, pun intended, of ukiyo-e and other Japanese art forms flowed through the rest of the world. Fascinated by these works, they became a popular souvenir and export, leading to a renewed interest in the industry. Despite being considered a crude art form, The aesthetic of these woodblock prints was considered by the West as quintessential Japanese art. It is a notion that still persists. Today, the obsession with ukiyo-e, and specifically Hokusai's Under the Wave of Kanagawa, has remained strong. In June 2023, an excellent iteration of the print sold at auction with Christie's New York. $2.76 million, exponentially more than the original price, which equated to a humble bowl of noodles. 3 Colon international influence. The end of Japan's self-imposed isolation in the mid-19th century had significant implications for the world of art, as well as politics and economics. One of the immediate effects of Japan's opening up to the world was the revelation of Japanese art to an astonished global audience. Over the centuries of Japan's isolation, Japanese art had developed in a unique way, resulting in a style that was bold, with intense colors, simple lines, and areas of flat color. This style of art would go on to influence a whole generation of artists and eventually precipitate modern art. The influx of Japanese art, craft, and other cultural materials into Europe in the 19th century was profoundly influential, leading to the rise of what has been termed la japonaise, or Japonisme, a French term referring to the frenzy for all things Japanese in the Western world. The effect of this craze is widely seen in the work of the Impressionists, with artists such as Claude Monet including traditional Japanese garb and fans in a painting of his wife, titled Camille Monet in Japanese Costume, 1876. Following his move to Giverny in 1883, he added a Japanese footbridge to his garden, which became a fixture in many of his paintings. Taking inspiration from woodcuts specifically, Mary Cassatt created a series of etchings that use similar fields of color, line work, and perspective, as can be seen in her maternal Caress, 1890 to 1891. Recent considerations of Hokusai's essays, Under the Wave off Kanagawa, and its influence have connected the image to another artwork that vies for the position of most famous worldwide, Vincent van Gogh's The Starry Night, 1889. It has been long known that Van Gogh was a collector and admirer of Japanese prints, but in 2018, Martin Bailey of Van Gogh, specialist and the art newspaper correspondent, published a piece connecting the two iconic works. There are believed to be citation of letters written by the artist to his brother Theo. Hokusai's waves or claws, the boat is caught in them. You can feel it, and observes parallels in the rich use of the color blue and swirling compositions. This suggests that Van Gogh's encounter with the ukiyo-e artist and his work was inspirational and possibly significant to the completion of The Starry Night. Next time you come across the great wave picture or print, take a moment to acknowledge the hard work and the team that made sure we have this remarkable piece of art up to today. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to share, like it, and also subscribe so that you don't miss any upcoming video. Thank you, and see you in the next video.